Hope you guys had a great Thursday. Happy Friday. Let's go ahead and jump into this pre-market brief. Once again, if you are looking for specific information, the chapter should be listed above or below in the description. Let's go ahead and jump right into this lovely Friday morning. We are starting off looking at crypto. We see that it is pulling in the red, not too much in the green, but we will get back to Bitcoin and the chart analysis on that in just a few. Let's go ahead and take a look and see how the averages ended the day yesterday. We had the Dow Jones ending in the green, just barely, basically breaking even at plus 0.03%. We had the S&P ending in the red at negative 0.54%, and the NASDAQ ending heavy in the red at negative 1.18%. One thing I wanted to note about this pullback in the market, it wasn't an actual sell-off when I looked at it in a little bit more detail. It was actually a transition from large cap stocks to small and mid cap stocks within the market. So they didn't sell completely out of the market for cash and to put into a bank account or anything like that. So just something to note. Let's go ahead and see how portfolio did yesterday. As far as the biggest winners, IonQ up 21.70% on yesterday. Second winner was Porch Group, which is a new insurance company that you may want to take note of. I bought this when it was a penny stock, and it has done solidly over the past few years. They are big players, even though many may not be giving them the attention that they deserve. And also FICO is up there with those winners. As far as the pre-market is concerned, we see that we have a bit of a break, even more in the red though. Most of the small and mid cap stocks are selling off a little bit from dealing with this week's past earnings, which was solid, especially in the field of quantum. But we will take a look a little bit closer at the S&P in just a few. Let's look at global markets and then we will build from there. We have the Asian markets. Let's see, we got the Korean market ending their week in the red at negative 1%, just to somewhat take back all of those positive days that they had this week. But in general, they're probably up like 10, 15, 20% on the week because of all of the rallies that just surged through their market during this week. Japanese markets ending in the green, basically break even at plus 0.16%. And Taiwan markets, they must be on holiday or something, ending unchanged. Well, let's see how the European scene or European landscape is doing on the day so far. It is right now 5:24 Eastern Standard Time. We see the Stoxx 600, which is the overall European market, sitting at plus 0.26, so in the green solidly. French markets sitting at negative 0.11%. The only market down out of all the other European markets, which is interesting. And then the DAX German market sitting at plus 0.22%. So Europe is in the green. So we might have a okay day today, but we will find out. I don't believe there's any economic releases that's going to be coming out on this lovely Friday. But let's head back over to the Webull platform and we'll take a closer look at the S&P and see where we may be going on this lovely Friday, starting with the daily time frame. It looks like we are just bouncing a little bit in between that upper boundary area right above 6,900 and 6,900, and in between our highest high at 6,993. That's the first upper bound that we are looking to break through. But a little slight recovery in the market after a huge surge after the earnings this week is, it's acceptable. Let's look at the 30-minute time frame and see if there's anything that gives us a little bit more clarity on what's going on in regards to the market. It just shows that we are bouncing along that bounce, but we did create a new floor, a new higher low. So here's our first low that we were at earlier this week. And then we had that surge on Wednesday, pull back on Thursday, bouncing, and then heading back, hopefully back through this middle boundary as far as the S&P chart analysis is concerned. Let's go ahead and take a look at Bitcoin and see where it sits on the day after it surged through the $65,000 mark from that lower bound. We'll start at the daily time frame. BTC. This is IBIT. Man, every single time, bro. Okay. So it looks like we're solidly above that middle bound line as far as our range. So it looks pretty solid. Still in a sideways trend though, waiting for clarity on the Clarity Act. But all the information regarding stable coins, data, and crypto that dropped this week should be a sign for Congress that this needs to go ahead and get taken care of, because everything is getting adopted, whether they like it or not. And if we're not ahead of the curve, we're going to be behind, and America will not be in the lead in that case. Let's look at the 30-minute time frame. Right now, Bitcoin is around 66,000, heading towards that lower bound, but we'll see what the weekend brings tomorrow, because we have a lot of news to catch up on, I believe. We'll find out after I do my reading today. As far as the 30-minute time frame, we had that big push after the stablecoin issuance, or not stablecoin, Circle Internet releasing its earnings on Wednesday and crushing like never before. And then we had a bit of a drawdown Thursday with all the tension on the rest of the market. But in general, we're showing a downtrend going into this Friday, so we may be heading back lower, closer to that lower bound at 65,000, and maybe we might break back down to the lower portion of it. But my guess is that we stay between these two upper bounds and continue this sideways trend until we get clarity on the Clarity Act. But let's go ahead and head over to Webull. Well, we're in Webull, but let's go ahead and get into some of these earnings that dropped yesterday. So D-Wave Quantum. D-Wave Quantum is one of the other quantum stocks. Now, the difference between IonQ and D-Wave Quantum is their methodology when it comes to presenting their information, press releases, and all the details of what their company is doing as far as contracts and everything. Now, D-Wave Quantum has been consistent with putting out press releases, because I look up company press releases on a daily basis just to keep up with the information, keep track. IonQ, on the other hand, which is the NVIDIA of the quantum realm, they didn't release a lot of the information and a lot of the details until the financial report that they released on Wednesday. So it's a difference in marketing. It's a difference in coverage when it comes to different companies in a sector. But the way that they do it can heavily determine whether investors gravitate to them or not. But one thing I wanted to note before I get into the points about D-Wave, about their call, was this. The one thing that I did not like when it came to management and leadership, specifically the CEO and the, I guess you could say, the transcript that they were reading off of when it comes to the earnings report and the shareholder letter, is the fact that they kept on making the point to say, we are the best in this industry. You know, these other companies aren't doing anything better than us. We are the best. But you missed on earnings per share. You missed on revenue. Yes, your sales funnel increased 179%. And a lot of other good metrics as far as revenue building faculties within the company. But in general, the way, when you're focused on another company, just like in real life, if you're always talking about somebody else, like I'm better than him, comparison is not the key to attracting more investors to your company. It's good to have competition in your field. Just be okay with it. Yes, they're doing these things. Yes, they're doing it differently than you. They are not you. So for me, when leadership is too focused on another company and not focused enough in their words, discussion, and their presentations on their own, it's a turnoff, just in general. Just for me, I'm gonna stay invested in D-Wave Quantum, but in general, the way that IonQ presented their information, they didn't denote specifically any other quantum company. They just listed facts, figures, contracts, physical contracts, new contracts that they had recently settled down into or recently signed. So it's just that really got me when it came to the earnings call for D-Wave Quantum. One other thing to note about their earnings call is the fact that they are more technical focused. So most of the people in D-Wave Quantum or running D-Wave Quantum they're very intelligent. But just like Joby, when it comes to the stakeholders and presenting information and marketability, the way that they communicate the information is just too tech focused when it comes to somebody who's just investing their money in the company and expecting more results and information regarding the progress of the company. But they hit a few milestones, and they mentioned some of the past press releases, old news, when it came to their company that others may not have known if they haven't been keeping up. But in general, just a turnoff when it came to the earnings call. But some of the main points that was mentioned in this call is that they have 400% increase in their booking, 1,500% increase in the sales pipeline, which is solid. Quantum is the new wave, if you did not know. I believe that was mainly it when it came to the information that they dropped, because most of the press releases or the contracts and the sales that they mentioned in this call, I've already covered in past videos. So we're just going to continue on from there over to Vistra. This is one of the nuclear companies that the U.S. government has invested in to help push forward that initiative to take over or to bolster energy in the U.S. Now, this company, they did beat on revenue, but they missed on earnings per share. That's the money that the investor gets paid or is making off of each dollar of the share value. But they did mention that they obviously secured a contract with Amazon and Meta over a decade long. And one thing I want to note about Vistra and the nuclear energy arena when it comes to the next few years and the development and signing of different contracts and the building out of the nuclear infrastructure of the U.S. It's going to take time. It is a slow moving industry, just because of how long it takes to build up the facilities and to get them online. So one thing that's going to be key when it comes to investing in the nuclear portion of the energy boom is you have to have a long-term time frame as far a long-term mindset when it comes to it, and you have to have the patience to do it. Now, as they hit milestones, you can begin to build into your position as far as that stock is, or those stocks are concerned. I believe it's Vistra. What's another one that we have? Oklo, and there's one other one. ASPI. So these things may be slow moving, but once they get into position, the results will definitely begin to show. And you just have to be patient when it comes to nuclear in the industry. Other than that, they just made sure to clarify that they do have a lot of people who are interested in building out nuclear energy centers or infrastructure for their company and for their data centers, but they are waiting to get everybody's minds out of the clouds and get these contracts in writing on paper. Once those contracts are signed, then those press releases will be pushed out. But everything is just a process when it comes to nuclear. You got to get through regulation, you got to get through planning, design, acquiring the land. It's a lot of pieces to the puzzle when it comes to the nuclear energy portion of the infrastructure build out within the United States. Another major energy provider that released its information or released its earnings yesterday was Cheniere. I don't know if I'm saying that right. I believe I'm saying it wrong, actually. But this is a natural gas company, and they're mainly an exporter. They beat on earnings per share by a mile. So what was expected was $3.82 to $3.90 when it comes to earnings per share, but they hit $10.68 earnings per share. So the investors, they are getting taken care of, which is lovely to hear, but they did miss on revenue. A few points that they noted was that they did secure a Taiwan contract till about 2050, which is great. European demand is growing, so they're mainly an exporter of the gas that they mine from the U.S. in general. But European demand is growing with the goal to replace Russian gas. And the reason why they missed on revenue so much was because their China demand shrunk. And that's due to China's struggling industrial sector and their economy. If you did not know, a lot of people talk about how good China is doing, but There's a channel even on YouTube called China Update. He shares information regarding the Chinese economy and everything that's happening in government. But if you've been keeping up with China, you know that their economy in general is struggling. And it may put out numbers as far as the economic data that they release to the world that are misleading if you don't understand the underlying details. But their economy, a lot of their industries are going downhill. And demand within the country, as far as their general consumer, their citizen consumers, is tanking. It's bad. It's real bad. But let's go ahead. We're going to talk about Rocket Labs, one of my favorite stocks that I recently added to the portfolio. Rocket Labs, ticker RKLB. They actually have a launch today at 3:30. I believe it was canceled. It's a hypersonic missile launch on their HASTE rocket that will be launching today, and they will be doing that live. So I will be tuning in. I will be posting the link for that later today. But they did beat on earnings per share, and they beat on revenue. A lot of major milestones for Rocket Labs. I love their presentation too, but here it is. So some of the financial highlights that they noted was that they recorded record revenue in the quarter and annually. They had strong annual growth, record quarter, record backlog, and record gross margin, which is the money they make in between the cost of doing business and the money that they made on their sales and revenue. So one thing to majorly note about this company is that they're number one in small launch leaders worldwide. That is huge. So typically, to get satellites and other pieces of equipment into space, it costs a pretty penny. But with Rocket Labs, you can say, miniaturized the launch vehicle to an affordable rate to where it's beneficial to put those satellites, to put those or test those missiles, or send equipment to interplanetary discovery and get that in orbit without it costing an arm and a leg as far as the launch industry is concerned. Other things to note, they are one of the main partners with the US and in general with getting equipment to Mars. I believe NASA is planning to launch a telecommunications network there, so that is pretty dope. They actually have a Mars mission that is currently in operation with NASA and University of California, Berkeley. And they will actually, those satellites that they've launched is on its way to Mars right now. Within a month, they'll be handing control over to University of California, Berkeley, and NASA for them to carry out the rest of the procedure. So that's interesting. So, we're advancing towards Mars slowly but surely. And they did note one of their new rockets that they're developing, I believe it's called the Neutron rocket, is it had a explosion that happened as far as tank testing earlier last year or late last year, maybe earlier this year or late last year. But the reason why that happened was because instead of using the machine to build out the tank in a structural manner, to meet timelines, they contracted a company to do it handmade. So it was human error that caused the failure of that tank. But they're on track, and they should be launching that new launch vehicle by the end of Q4. So that's something to look out for. Some other things that they noted was that space-based data centers are way off. And one thing to also note about this company is that understand that this is not just a rocket company, but also a space equipment company. So it's not just launch vehicles, it's test vehicles for hypersonic missiles, it's satellites, it's power units for satellites, it's optical, the build out of satellites as far as their optics is concerned. One of the major acquisitions that they made this past year was an optical company. And one of the reasons why they did this is to solidify the timelines whenever a satellite, as far as optics and surveillance is concerned, is requested, because instead of having to wait in line with the contracted company, they can directly put an order in with the company if it's already aligned and a part of their general dynamic as far as the company is concerned. One other thing to note is that they are really big on closing out this Monarch laser optics company with Germany. One major thing about that is, I believe one of the analysts on the call was asking about the European landscape, and this acquisition of Monarch would be key in establishing a foothold in the European landscape. One thing to note, I mean, Europe doesn't have too many other options when it comes to getting their satellites to space or developing satellite technology and other hardware components that are meant to operate in space within their own borders, because they haven't been developing that industry. They are beginning to, but the timelines that they need to meet as far as national defense, national security, and the move in the military arena, Rocket Labs is in prime position to meet that need. So sales on the European landscape, just like with Planet Labs, just like with a lot of these military hardware space-based companies, it's a huge opportunity in the European arena over the next 5 to 10 years. Once they begin to develop their own home-based companies, then that demand may wane. Other than that, last but not least, we are going to discuss a little bit about MP Materials. This is another one of the main companies that the U.S. invested in to secure the supply chain. They missed on revenue due to stopping their sales with China, and this is securing critical minerals specifically relating to magnetic material, I believe. They beat on EPS. They do have partnerships with Apple, the Department of War, and I think most recently, that many don't know who the main partner in the U.S. is as far as the car industry is concerned, but I believe it's GM. So that's huge. That's a major connection to make, because car magnets are necessary throughout the development of the car. So that's nice. One other thing to note about this company, MP Materials, is that they are very small. They're like just starting out, and there's a lot to build out when it comes to their company, when it comes to their pipeline and their infrastructure. So this year is going to be pivotal for them. They may not be too focused on the revenue portion, but more focused on solidifying the long-term landscape and the long-term infrastructure necessary to secure that supply chain within the United States. But other than that, guys, I believe that is all that I have for you guys on this lovely Friday. Tomorrow, we'll more than likely be catching up on any major news that I missed out because we were covering these earnings reports. Next week, we got another round of interesting earnings when it comes to small and mid cap stocks and a few other large cap stocks within the portfolio. But other than that, we'll take a brief look and see if the pre-market changed any, and then we'll just end it out like that. But it's breaking even, still pulling back heavy in the red when it comes to some of these mid and small cap stocks that released their earnings. Quantum industry on this lovely week. But don't forget to stock the future. I want you guys to be able to fire your boss. I am my boss. Be able to fire your boss within the next 1 to 5 years. We are investing for the freedom, the opportunity, and the chance to invest in our dreams, spend time with our families, and to grow those businesses and pursue purpose the way that we were meant to. This is how we're meant to live. Invest. Take the chance, take the opportunity, and let your money work for you. Other than that, guys, hope you have a great Friday. Don't forget to stock the future, and I will see you guys tomorrow if there's a lot of news to drop. Peace.